I'll be honest, when I first saw this comment, I was like, do I have to? Do I really have to go into more detail on that? And the reason why I felt like that is I just feel like conservative arguments and positions on most things are just very obviously transparent and flimsy. But then I have to take a step back and remember that not everyone makes their living disputing and debunking conservative positions. So yeah, let's get into more detail on it. First of all, I just want to say that I talk at length on the latest episode about why I think it is that conservative positions tend to be so flimsy and bad and easy to debunk. So if you want to go listen to that, you can, and you should. But yeah, okay, let's talk about the flimsy, really bad, really paper thin argument that conservatives have for biological reality. And I'm going to make this whole video without ever straw manning the conservative position on this topic even once. I don't need to straw man the conservative position on this topic or misrepresent the conservative position on this topic to have an easier time contending with it. It just is a very bad, flimsy argument that just is very easy for me to contend with, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where a conservative person is presenting their position on gender ideology, which usually sounds something like there are only two genders, that's just a scientific reality and fact. Really make sure that it's clear to both of you that we are agreeing to commit to their position being that there are only two options for how people can identify in terms of their gender. Once you've gotten them to commit to that essential premise, you can move on to getting them to commit to some parameters by which we can define what gender is. Most conservatives would have no problem committing to the idea that the scientific aspects that define what a person's gender is are things like their chromosomal makeup, their hormonal makeup, and their anatomical makeup. So according to the conservative fixed binary model, where there are only two options in each of these categories, it's that chromosomally, girls have XX and boys have XY. Hormonally, girls have estrogen and boys have testosterone. And anatomically, girls have vagina and boys got penis. Now comes the fun part, where you get to easily win the argument. So let's just start with chromosomes. If it is true that a person's chromosomes determine what gender they are, and if it is also true that there are only two possible genders that they could be, then that would mean that there are only two possible chromosomal orientations a person can have. They can only be XX or XY. There cannot be a third option. So this is where you just say to the person that you're talking to, okay, have you ever seen a person with Down syndrome or Turner syndrome? And they say, yes. And then you say, okay, well, those syndromes are the result of chromosomal anomalies. Now, at this point, you have won the argument, but the conservative person is obviously almost never going to admit that. So even though you've won the argument, this person is most likely just going to move the goalpost and move on to the next category. They'll say something like, well, who cares? What does Down syndrome or Turner syndrome have to do with gender anyway? What really makes a person a boy or a girl is the other two things, because a boy with Down syndrome still has a penis and testosterone, and a girl with Down syndrome still has vagina and estrogen. Checkmate lives. So you move on to the hormonal argument. Okay, let's do this again. If there are only two genders, and if our hormones are the thing that determine which gender we are, that would mean that there can only be two ways that people's hormones present in their bodies. All men would have to have the exact same fixed amount of testosterone in their bodies, and all women would have to have the exact same fixed amount of estrogen in their bodies. And what's funny about this one is conservatives know that that's not how it works, and they argue from that position all the time. They love calling people like me a low testosterone beta soy boy cuck, and how people like Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan are high testosterone alpha males, meaning that within the scope of what is a man, there is a sliding scale of how much testosterone you can have, and that scale corresponds with how much of a man you really are. But if there are only two genders, and gender is a fixed binary, then there should be no such thing as being less of a man or more of a man. You either are a man or you're not a man. There can only be those two options. What conservatives are describing when they talk about me being low testosterone and beta and Andrew Tate being high testosterone and alpha is a spectrum, not a fixed binary. Congratulations, you just won the argument again, but oh, what's this? The conservative person is moving the goalpost again because of course they are. The most important factor in determining gender identity, as we all know, is what's between your legs. So let's do this again. If there are only two genders, and if your anatomical makeup is what determines which gender you are, then there only can be two options. But it turns out that humans present in way more than two ways anatomically all the time, so you win a third time, easily. Congratulations, you. And to any conservatives who maybe managed to watch this entire video, I would absolutely love to hear you try and refute anything I just said in any meaningful, substantive, data-based way. But you can't because everything I just said is objectively true because I prioritize having good, strong arguments that are correct, and you prioritize having bad, flimsy arguments that only exist so that you can be ideologically opposed to me because you suck. Okay, bye. I'm just a mediocre white guy with a mustache. I probably have nothing if it weren't for the mustache. I'd just be another average white guy trying to use my skin and my gender to skate by. But I've got a mustache. Oh, it helps me stand out from the crowd.